Okay, that was really interesting though, with the world card. Hey.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. I mean, the tarot cards are there, but the Sinclairs invented the tarot cards. They put it in the cathedral. Everyone's ignored it, and the cathedral is tarot.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, whew.
And
so
a lot of Christians think that the tarot card is Satan worshiping, and here it is right in their church.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And it has been for hundreds of years.
Are we recording?
Yes, we are.
Are we? Did you want to have that included?
If you like.
Well, okay.
I think it's actually an interesting point, though, right? Because there it is right in front of everyone, again, for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fleur-de-lis being flowers
Mm-hmm.
is just fantastic. So the tarot card's right there, and it's been there for 800 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so at 41 minutes 45 and 42:14, Q turned up 3 times on that day, Saturday, 25th November 2023, once in the Peterborough Mall and twice in Tetbury, the Cotswolds, as the only shop we could see from lunch at the Snooty Fox. In this shop, Q was on the window and the painting behind it said Q, so we had Q 3 times. So we're talking about trinities today. You know, there's a lot of trinity coming out. So Q equals Osiris, as in Osiris rising, which is shown by that. That's the symbol for Osiris rising. And when I was in Waltham Chapel on 15th of June 2023, David presented, and it was just absolutely brilliant. You know, everyone was just leaning in, listening. He spoke for like an hour and a half. It's just fantastic. And then I showed this royal mark and another royal mark, and the guy went like this. The high up Knights Templar went like this.
Wow.
Yeah. So then at Peterborough Cathedral, there were 3 Chinese Qigong, Qigong dancers in tie-dyed white down to blue costumes representing the joining of heaven and earth. And that was also the name of their dance. This was completed with the 3 clacking red fans.
Mm-hmm. It made a lot of noise, actually. Those fans and them stomping.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
It would echo throughout.
In the Peterborough Cathedral transfer between Canon 11 and Canon 13, there was the violin inch. Canon 13 shows Venus, which represents the goddess, pointing to the star next to the rose, as in the rose line is the star. This pointed back to Canon 11, which had the 5-pointed Star of David, then the Masonic compass G, which means generative principle. That's why you got the G and these radiating lights coming out behind it, right? And we're talking about antediluvian knowledge.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Because it was cutting out again.
We're talking about the G with radiating out, behind the G, light radiating out. It means generative, as in this is generative knowledge. Like if you've got this bit of knowledge, you can get a lot of other bits of knowledge. And this knowledge that I'm talking about now is the antediluvian knowledge, the pre-flood knowledge, right? So 3147 BC, before that. So Canon 13 shows Venus, which represents the goddess, pointing to the star next to the rose, as in the rose line is the star. This pointed back to Canon 11, which had the 5-pointed Star of David, then the Masonic compass with G for generative principle, which is antediluvian knowledge, then the 7-pointed star to represent the 7 traditional planets. This also alludes to Mont Saint Michel, which is, I went there, and the whole island and cathedral and the supporting structure is basically a carved rocket ship, and the cathedral is a bay to put a rocket in. It's called a high bay. Right?
And where is this?
This is on an island off Normandy.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And it used to be, it's twinned with St. Michael's Mount, used to be owned by the same people. But it was also built by King David's ancestors. This is exemplified by Roslyn Chapel, which was built for King David to decipher. I went with King David to Roslyn Chapel, bought his ticket in, kept the receipt, and he deciphered Roslyn Chapel.
You will never let him forget that either. We hear it in every video. He bought that ticket.
No. It's just a privilege, to actually be there on the day.
Yeah.
It's happening, to see it happening.
Sure.
Okay. So it was his first time there in Roslyn Chapel. Yeah. He revealed the sculptures on the wall, matched the markings on the wall, and this immediately became the pattern of the Schumann residence.
Yeah.
So the Schumann residence blew up at 3 p.m. just when he was deciphering it, and the pattern on the Schumann residence is the same as the pattern marked on the wall and in the sculptures, which are about head height. It's fantastic. So this was the 15th of June 2023, the hottest day in Scotland. Some would call it Magna Carta Day, but Magna Carta never existed.
Okay, so let's go back to the Schumann residence. Do you think that him speaking, it activated something that then activated a boost in the consciousness on this planet, or what happened?
Well, I think it was something that was due to happen, and it happened. And like everyone in the cathedral was just craning in to hear as much as they could, And so it was a real thing, it was real.
Yeah.
The real power, time, moment.
Energy.
Yeah. It was, and it'd been like the Roslyn Chapel had been built in the 1400s for this particular occasion, right? And he just goes in and does it. So that's what 600 years later.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was. It was a great moment. So, so King David met with me, accompanied me, returned the 2 rings to Roslyn Chapel as per the Lord of the Rings. Right. The markings on his ring matched the markings on the floor under the cathedral in Peterborough Cathedral, where I stood and read from the passages marked out in the Bible for that day and for the scenario. So we were there on the right day, Bible was open, and the scenario was actually happening in real time. So Bilbo Baggins, Gandalf, and Theoden King represent the psyche of the same living man on this journey. Theoden King was around, not 2 words, it's not a round, it's around 6 foot with a goatee in his 60s.
Looks like you.
So Greg Hallett, right? Now David is the psyche of King Aragorn, Legolas, Prince of the Woodland Realm, a representation of the Prince of Light, which is one of his titles, the Shining One, the Elohim. From Elohim comes Elf, Elohim E-L-O-H, him, comes Elf, E-L-F, and Elrond, E-L-R-O-N-D. Lord of Rivendell, a half-elf, aka Sindarin, which means Stardome. And also Samwise Gamgee, Frodo Baggins, nephew of Bilbo Baggins. So what's happened in Lord of the Rings is they've got all these psyches. You've got one person and they've identified all of their psyches, and they've created characters out of their psyches in different stages of their life. So in reverse, Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee work together and become Elrond, Lord of Rivendell, and become Prince of the Woodland Realm, Legolas, and then King Aragorn. Right? King Aragorn has the ring of Barahir, which proves he's the true king of the king's line. It's a representation of Ouroboros. It's got 2 snakes, right? Like Ouroboros is 2 snakes following around the sun. The 2 snakes continually chasing each other around the sun, trying to swallow each other's tail. And this is how Isis communicates with us, as in the is in Israel, right? So J.R.R. Tolkien was an historian for the Sinclair and Plantagenet families. He wrote an analogy of the prophecies of the true bloodline and called it the Lord of the Rings. It's tying in, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, the 2 rings.
Yeah. So all Rex Deus families are ring lords and possess family rings. Catherine of Aragon was the first wife of Henry VIII and became Queen Catherine of England, 1509 to 33, and is buried adjacent to the Chancellery in Peterborough Cathedral. Aragorn becomes King of Aragon, 1035 to 63, who is Ramiro, great-great-grandfather of William the Conqueror. The blending of fiction into reality is affirmed in this royal burial of Catherine of Aragon in Peterborough Cathedral with King Aragon. Right?
King Aragon.
King Aragon in Lord of the Rings. So
right.
there's a real King Aragon. There's a real Queen Catherine of Aragon who becomes Queen of England.
Mm-hmm.
And then
there's a King Aragon in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. With the same ring.
Right.
With the same floor pattern, with the same ceiling pattern, with the same sculptures on the dais. It's just like on and on. Whew. So, this is partially filled when we returned the rings to Roslyn Chapel on 15 June 2023. I just bought the tickets, watched and listened and all, although I did enter with 2 royal marks. The 6-pointed star is the Star of Solomon. The 5-pointed star is the Star of David. These are on David's 2 rings. Joseph Gregory Hallett myself went to Peterborough Cathedral, went into the chancellery and stood on the cathedral and read the passages in the Bible where it was open and marked by a black ribbon. The title underneath the cathedral and throughout the chancellery, the tiles underneath the cathedral and throughout the chancellery were of the same pattern as on King David's rings, a square surrounded by a square with a square on each corner. This can be interpreted as continuing the return of the rings. This pattern was also as in Lord of the Rings and as in Roslyn Chapel in real life. So the fantasy and reality and the movies
intertwined.
Is so intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
This pattern was also the same pattern on the wall of the Lord of the Rings in the chapter of the film about the Tomb of the Kings. It had his rings on it. Film 1 is the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Rings. Film 2 is the Two Towers, and David and myself at least partly represent the Two Towers. Mm-hmm. The third film is The Return of the King.
How tall is David?
Huh?
How tall is David, King David?
6'9".
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking you're fairly tall as well.
Yeah, I'm around 6
it would
foot.
be the Two Towers.
If you see a photo of the two of us together, it's like I look like a hobbit.
Well, 6'9".
He's actually Strider, which becomes King Aragon, and he's known as Strider for his long stride.
Wow.
Yeah. So, which is true for real life, and the physical description of him, which I'm going to come to, and the physical description of me are just so incredibly spot on.
Accurate.
Yeah, both in the Lord of the Rings and in the Bible.
Wow.
It's just like taking a photograph. So the dais, raised platform or cathedra has 4 creatures on the handles. In the Holy Grail, led by the Lion of Judah, 4 corners of the Earth Cathedral, there is the bull for the earth, Taurus. There's the lion for fire, Leo, the Lion of Judah, King of Kings, the Lion of Gryffindor. The name of the earth is Judah. As the eagle is the phoenix, which is Aquarius, which is the air, although we know Aquarius is a that's right, it's an air sign, isn't it? Yeah. Air, king of the air. So the eagle is king of the air, and the eagle is just full on air. And then it's the angel, which is Aquarius, water bearer, and the creator's well, which is homophonous with the creator's will. The lion and eagle combined are the phoenix, the griffin. Stately houses always have griffins in anticipation of the return of the King of Kings, which is David, and pays homage to the rose line. The 4 elements make up the ether, the 5th element. The whole thing is a representation of the world card in the tarot deck, which you can hold up again if you want. So at 33 minutes 57 to 34:10 and 35:26. In the carvings from Canon 11 to Canon 13, in the gap is the rose line and the vine. The hand rest on the stall is fleur-de-lis, which marks the rose vine lineage, and on this is the grapevine as well. The grapevine's